Yo, dudes and dudettes, what's going on with y'all? You know, 2020 has been one ass-crunching dumpster fire of a year, has it not? I mean, things suck. However, let it not be said that the world is not full of balance. For the burning acres of wildfire we had at the beginning of the year, we got free Bob Ross videos. COVID came in and we got Tiger King and Animal Crossing. We got murder hornets, courts closed down, and people can't get evicted due to not having a job. And now, we have one of the most annoying election periods of all time, basically ever. What does this mean? Has Thanos failed us? Is our universe out of balance now? No, for behold, just like the Avatar, Stephanie Meyer has returned when the world needed her most and released something for me and every other book reviewer to shit all over. Also, I know this took forever to come out. I'm sorry. It's a long fucking book. So, feel free to pause right now and grab a snack because, oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. So, I was actually really excited about this. Really excited. I moved it to the top of my review queue, excited. Midnight Sun is a companion book to Twilight, you know, that thing that came out back 20 years ago. Stephanie Meyer's disaster of a vampire romance series released back in 2003. After she finished all 4 of those books, she originally planned to write Midnight Sun in 2011, but the world got a hold of it ahead of time, leaked the first 11 chapters, and she threw a giant hissy fit and vanished from public eye. Now, why am I excited about this book? Well, for one, I hate it. I haven't even started it up yet, and I hate it with a passion. And it's been too long since I played around in a big pile of mess. Oh sure, boring books suck, but this book series is the trapped in the closet of the book world. It sucks, it's impossible to earnestly replicate, and the creator is totally delusional about how bad it is. Now, this book is being released 17 years after the first Twilight book. That's a long time. That's a long time in an artist's life, and as an artist, we continue growing and evolving each and every year. And usually admit to hate everything we made more than 5 years ago. And those that don't admit to that are lying. Now, I'm excited to see how Stephanie Meyer has grown as an author. I mean, it would be really, really unfortunate if her writing hasn't improved at all, and in almost 2 decades, and then some asshole on the internet revealed her to be the 2-bit talentless hack she actually is. Anyway, let's delve into this pile of turds. So, to kick things off, the opening credits of this audiobook have this deep and edgy piano music because, I'm so deep and the world will never understand. I love it. It would only be better if the narrator claimed to bleed black blood. Then it goes into this really fast-paced piano solo, and I'm not kidding, it goes on for about 40 seconds, while there's a thanks from Myers herself. You're welcome, Stephanie. Now spread your legs, because I'm going to kick you in the front, bud. Man, this might end up being a long review, because every sentence gives me unabounding joy. Opening sentences, this is the time I most wish I was able to sleep. High school. Then why the fuck do you go? You could just as easily not go. There is no law making young-looking people go to school. You could easily just be trust fund type kids and do nothing in your fancy glass house all day, moron. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong mindset. Let's all pity the stupid sparkly vampire. So the opening bit is about how horrible it is to be able to read the thoughts of everyone around you. Boo-hoo and all that. Honestly, I completely forgotten Edward could even do that. Tells you about what sort of lasting impression these books leave. I have to admit, I don't remember if this is the same as when it was first leaked, because I did read that at the time, but I think she rewrote it, in which case, good girl. I also think she actually learned to focus for at least half a breath on the other members of Edward Cullen's family, in order to help flesh them out a little bit. Good girl. Too bad your actual writing style still sucks, and there's no consistent tone except for existential dread, but hey, a step is a step. There's a bit in here about how Jasper is struggling to seem human because he doesn't move, and Alice sort of checks in with Edward mentally to see how he is. This is odd to me because Alice is supposed to be able to see the future, right? If you're worried about Jasper, I presume, going apeshit on all other humans, then why not just future gaze for a second? It seems like that would be totally possible. Also, it's worth mentioning this is a companion book to Twilight, but unlike a really good book I could mention, say, Ender's Shadow, this book does not stand up without its original. There's no explanation of why they have powers, no mention of them even being vampires, or the lives they led up until now. This is really annoying because if it can't stand on its own, why did you write it? I mean, aside from the millions of dollars you obviously will make, you sellout hack. So, you know that moment when you decide to go swimming in a lake and you're all happy about it, and you cannonball in, and then you spit the water out of your mouth, and you splash around a bit all happy, and then a passerby warned you that there's toxic sludge in the water, and now your enjoyment is a little tainted? Here's my passerby. I was curious when I saw that this audiobook was 25 hours long, so I looked it up. This book is literally twice as long as Twilight, which was already a fairly beefy novel. I'm realizing Stephanie Myers has learned the art of waffle, in which one can talk for hours and say nothing. I might have made a mistake. Also, I like how Edward mentions he tries to stay out of his family's head out of respect, but then he spends most of the first chapter in Jasper's head, so he doesn't nom everyone. I was expecting some retcons, but I didn't think we were going to retcon something that happened in this book. Also, Jasper vividly imagines what it would be like to eat this girl, and look, because it's a high school thing, I think it has to be mentioned that it feels eerily similar to a teenage boy imagining sex. Which makes me ask, who is your target audience for this book? Is this the same girls who originally read Twilight? Because I don't think they're going to want to read this. Alice tries to help out Jasper by telling him to think of the people he would be eating as people. In other news, the floor here is made out of floor. Like, what the fuck? So Edward hears Bella think his name and turns to see her, and I was about to mention how unrealistically captivating she is, but Edward actually thinks how boring she looks, which is great. It made me smile. Then Edward fails to read Bella's mind and figures she has no brain, which is fair enough considering her utter lack of any character or personality. So Edward overheard Bella ask Jessica about him, which Edward can either hear people's spoken dialogue through their thoughts, or he has stupidly good hearing, because my high school lunchroom would have drowned out a gunshot. Also, it specifies that Edward can't really focus his ability or block it out, in which case, how do you even public, bro? Like, imagine if you were in a building with 300 people constantly shouting their every little thought about you. You would lose your mind. You would never be able to hold a singular conversation with anyone. I started to think this ability isn't thought out at all and was arbitrarily created for drama. Also, apparently Jessica hates Bella. Like, take a knife and shiver kind of hates. I think they always sort of had this thing in the original books, but I don't remember it being this much. So Edward goes to biology where Bella sits next to him and he waxes on for several paragraphs about how he's going to kill her and everyone in the room and then drink her blood because this is a romance novel. Then someone sends a waft of fresh air over him by closing a book. Sure, and it's enough to make Carfile's face versus his own monster appear in his mind. And he actually uses the phrase, "It was bright day and blackest night." Just for fuck's sake. Comic books actually have better writing than this overly cliche bullshittery. Well, some comic books. So Edward waffles on for a really long time about the morality of being a good vampire. And while it might be interesting to watch someone struggle with this, here it's just really boring. Like, I was borderline falling asleep. Everything is just super dark, and the pain of Bella being there is burning, and a punishment for all his sins. And look, if I keep using up the edgy still, this video is going to be even more basic than my usual stuff. So Edward goes through his class thinking about killing and or sexing Bella, then goes on to seduce the woman who makes the schedules, and listens to her mind as she spends an entire conversation trying to remember that Edward is a student and allegedly a minor who she should not fuck. Romance, ladies and gentlemen. Bella shows up because reasons, and Edward flash runs to his car, which kind of brings up the point. If he can run faster than the human eye can see, which is implied and therefore breaks a great many physics, but let's just move past that part. If he can run that fucking fast, why use cars at all? It's just stupid. It's like those moments when Shadow the Hedgehog uses motorcycles in his game, but that was for Edge. And if Edward drives a Volvo, so Edge ain't it. Then Edward fucks off for 6 days to lay in the snow and chill. Sorry, that poem was horrible and deserved jail time. Anyway, this brings up the wonderful point. Why do they not do this all the time? Seriously, there is zero reason for them to engage in human society, and zero reason they have to be high schoolers beyond that. Stupid book premise is stupid. Anyhow, he spends time with a vampire named Tanya, who I don't remember at all from the books, and I can only imagine because she wasn't in them, which means why the fuck were they not introduced? It's just... I hate when stories play it out like, hey, just catch up from the middle. That's not how you tell a story. If you're recommending a story to friends at work, you start from the fucking start, or you recap important information. So Edward argues whether running away, because why would a man of over 100 years have any fucking sense of maturity and responsibility, and says that there's nothing in the world he wants to see or do because he'd only be running away. Like, what? You're basically immortal and there's nothing in the world you want to do? Dude, get a hobby. Run a business, write a book. No, wait, don't do that because I don't want to read it. Point is, the earth is huge and there's a ton of shit to do, and your stupid broody ass can't think of a single thing you want to do because you almost slipped up? This just... Edward, when you accidentally put the toilet paper roll on upside down, do you brood about that for a week straight too, or just... For fuck's sake, man. So Edward goes back to the school, and we hear him attempt to focus his thought hearing on Bella, which I thought he couldn't do. This would be mildly interesting if we hadn't already seen him attempt to do the exact same thing only one chapter ago. Excuse me while I slam my head into a desk. Good, now I'm suffering enough brain damage to get through the rest of this. Also, Jessica's a huge bitch in this, and I don't think she was intended to be in the original books. Then comes a moment that wobbles back and forth like a helicopter with a hippo on it. Edward calls Bella, Bella instead of Isabella, which she calls out. I was going to point out how this is a stupid slip-up on Edward's part, and it is. Then he pointed it out, so I was going to let it go. Then he mentions how smart and intelligent Bella must be to catch that slip-up, and no, she's really not. This isn't just a slam on Bella, this is not a hard catch. If your full name is Charles, but you spend your entire life going by the nickname Chuck, and then you move, everyone starts calling you Charles, and you meet the one dude who instantly calls you Chuck upon meeting you, it would stick out. Bella would have to be even more brain damaged than I think she is if she missed this. Then comes a moment that made me laugh so damn hard, I remembered exactly why I wanted to do this book in the first place. It's wonderful. All at once the haze of edge and misery broke, and a little midget Edward rose from the depths of the sea singing Linkin Park and Nightcore. Chapter 3 in the audiobook is called Risk. However, it's titled in the file as Phenomenon. I love this. This book is so hastily chopped out and shitty that even it doesn't know the title of its own crappy and generic chapters. And I know what you're thinking. Hey man, why don't you talk about the book or this chapter itself? Because I don't want to right now. I'd much rather talk about this horrible fuck up, and that should tell you all that you need to know about this fucking thing. So listening disinterestedly to this has me wondering, Carlisle was like genuinely a doctor. And presumably all these high schoolers have legal papers, which they ought to, right? Like, how the fuck does no one do the math? Or the vampire is engaged in several dozen counts of illegal documentation. I don't understand. If Carlisle is a doctor and he has to move around because he looks younger than he should, does he just lie to the new HR department and they don't check his license or social security number or anything? Shockingly, this teenage romance series does not hold up to scrutiny. Also, we're 3 chapters in and still whining on and on and on and on about Edward's conflicted personality, about how hard it is to be good when your soul is consumed by blackness and blah, blah, blah. So you remember how in the original book where the van almost hits Bella and all that moment happened very quickly and it was super obvious something was up with Edward? In here, it goes on for fucking ever. I know Edward moves fast and probably thinks fast, but this is just irritating. So oddly, we get more insight into Edward's sibling, and it ends up making them more one-dimensional than I remember them being. Edward is just a tortured soul, Emmett is just a lughead, Jasper is just hungry, Rosalie is just a vain bitch, and Alice is just the responsible one. It's a shame because this really could have given them more to do and more behavior, and yet it seems to focus on stamping out what little characters they gained from the original books. Oddly enough, Charlie gets a little more depth, just a little, as Edward is able to feel his emotional pain when he thinks Bella is hurt by the van crash. So we then spend a long time in the hospital, and Edward starts to become fascinated with Bella, and it's stupid and cliche and dumb, and I hate it, but at least it's better than him being a whiny 5-year-old. So I couldn't tell you how this comes up, but apparently Edward comes at odds with the family over Bella. Don't know why, don't know how. Apparently, he decides that he would be willing to fight his family for Bella, but fucking why? Okay, sure, she's meek and helpless, but you really don't know this chick, like, at all. Just stupid is stupid and it needs to be more noted. Okay, so remember a few paragraphs when I jokingly asked if the Cullens had a ton of illegal paperwork? Answer, yes they do. Like, how? What? Do they get those from the Vampire Illuminati? How do all these illegal licenses and everything stack up to scrutiny? Oh sure, maybe a school wouldn't really examine a license all that closely, but you're telling me a doctor can show up with entirely fake documents and that shit will all check out? My impression was illegal paperwork was that if a government official checked into it, it would become apparent that, oh hey, we didn't actually issue this, and this is super illegal. And then you suddenly have to wear an orange jumpsuit and decide if you want to get friendly with Big Bob or get really friendly with Big Bob. My point is, this is a stupid fucking answer to a problem that was never thought out. Like Palpatine being a clone or whatever that shit was. Look, I'll stop ragging on Star Wars when it stops hurting me. And how do they make the shit ton of money all this requires anyway? Insider trading due to Alice's bullshit psychic powers. And I have an issue with this. So those who remember Alice's bullshit will only recall that she can only see the path people are on while they're on it. Several times when someone changes their mind about something, it totally changes everything in the future. So what the fuckery? A power that is that temperamental is actually going to predict the stock market? Suck a dick, book. Anywho, Edward peeps on Bella and even admits how really creepy and stranger danger this is. Like, bro, psycho stalkers don't even think that they're being psycho stalkers. Okay, look, stupid book is really stupid. Just find out where the title comes in and it's fucking stupid. Edward's life must exist in the midnight, and it must always be midnight, for a creature as black as him can only exist in the shadow, or whatever the fuckery. So, how can it be that the sun had come out in the midnight, all because Bella said his name in her sleep and asked him to stay with her? Edward, don't stay. Please go. Please go away and choke on a dick, you massive drama queen. So, Bella goes into another town for a girls' trip with Bitch and Angela and nearly gets raped because Bella would find a way to nearly get killed by a newborn puppy. Edward does his Superman thing and it's really, really boring. What though? Like, this is one of the first major action bits in this book. Why is it boring? Because Myers has only one way to write, which is a giant-ass sledgehammer with the word melodrama written on it. It's been drama from the gills from the word go. And so more drama and a near rape honestly just come off as like a standard boring moment. If you ramp things up to 11, you can't stay there. That's just bleh. And this is bleh. It's the same problem I have with soap operas, but like, seriously, this reads like a bad soap opera.
Edward, what were those boys doing that had you so mad?
They were going to rape you, Bella. There's more.
Say there's no more.
I wanted to kill them for it. Tell me you wouldn't watch that. So, Edward talks about him being a vampire, and honestly, there's very little to say about it because it's basically a copy-paste of Twilight. And what was boring the first time is even more boring the second time. Then Edward stalks her while he sleeps because that's what he does. It's fucked up. Carlisle and Edward dish out some vigilante justice, and then Edward thinks about Bella's body to a borderline sexual manner. Totally sensible if you think about it as a whirlwind teenage romance. Really, really creepy and somewhat illegal if you consider that he is over 100 years old, perving out on a 16-year-old. Then he draws attention to Bella's collarbone, and look, Myers, I get why you can't have Edward thinking about Bella's boobs. That would be not very cool, but really? The collarbone? Am I the only one that thinks the human collarbone is kind of a fucking disgusting part of the human body? Don't get me wrong, I'm glad I have it and all, but it's not an attractive part of the body. So Edward mind eavesdrops on Bella, and they later discuss it out and drag shit out just like before. And then comes my favorite part of this entire book thus far, when Jessica is watching them and actually thinks the word swoon. That is not a thing. Swooning is a verb. I don't think breathe when I breathe. I just fucking do it. I don't care if this is whatever it's desperately trying to be. It's just stupid. Then more edgy darkness happens, and they both complain about the immortal struggles of a teenage relationship, in which neither person can clearly express, hey, I like your face and I want to get to know more about you. Edward entertains the idea of Bella at a dance wearing something pretty instead of that ugly sweater, and I don't give a shit. I don't get that shit. Yes, when a woman dresses up, it can be very attractive, but I also love the appeal of just a simple, relaxed beauty as well. But that idea that a woman can't look good in normal clothes has always bugged me. So, Edward thinks Bella becoming a vampiric monster is horrible. Cool, I get it. I even agree to a degree. However, what is his plan since he wants to keep her around? Like, date her till she dies? Force an 80-year-old woman to move every few years so you keep pretending to be a high schooler? Do you want to bring someone that everyone thinks is your grandmother to a movie at 5 in the afternoon? Like, what is the end game here, dude? I mean, when the cute girl at the coffee shop or the waitress or whatever smiles at me, do I instantly think way too far into the future about how it would be cool for us to get together? Yes, but that's not an entirely impossible endeavor guaranteed to end in disaster, in a theoretical sense. So Edward wants to give Angela a gift because she's the only halfway decent friend Bella apparently has, and decides to set her up with her crush because that relationship can have a happy ending. Because unlike him and Bella, the difference isn't enough to cross the vast voids of the ocean and brood, wine. Edward, man, nobody likes somebody who's like this all the time. Seriously, dude, if you step on a crack on the sidewalk, do you commit seppuku because no one can ever be as big a screw-up as you are? Just pull the giant doom log out of your ass for 5 seconds. So you know how when you hit your late 20s, you start becoming jaded and saying, fuck everything? Like, yeah, maybe that girl at the bar was smiling and winking because she was flirting with you, but fuck it. Imagine being 104 and still being a hormonal teenager. Just like, dude, grow the fuck up. Though that does make an interesting point. If he's still in a teenager's body, then does that mean he's in an eternal puberty? What if he's a late bloomer? If his body is forever frozen in a state with no blood flow, how does he get a boner later on to create the horrible CGI baby? Or did he have a boner when he got bitten? Does he have a forever boner? This weird line of thought brought to you by somebody who doesn't enjoy Twilight, although all the fanfic writers are free to correct me on the function of vampire peen. So Edward wants to get to know Bella better, and she explains that she has Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory in her car's CD changer. Great choice of album. However, Edward is bothered by this, stating that it doesn't match Bella's mood, and my instant reaction is, what? Linkin Park is the quintessential teenage anger. I'd be more shocked to meet anyone from 13 to 21 in the American public school system that this album does not fit. Bella is not that damn special, Meyer. Then she lists her favorite movies as Pride and Prejudice, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and The Empire Strikes Back. Get the last two because Bella is quirky and not like other girls? Fucking shoot me. Look, liking Star Wars is great. It would give me something to chat with and argue about with a girlfriend. However, being unlike all the other girls is not a personality trait. Liking Star Wars is just that. It's something you like. I love Star Wars up to 2015. Like, I own an X-Wing pilot jacket that I made myself. But my love of Star Wars doesn't define me. I could write pages of myself, and I doubt I'd mentioned Star Wars once. So no, it's not a character trait. Also, apparently there's a 6-hour movie of Pride and Prejudice. Holy fucking shit. I cannot imagine how hair-pullingly boring that movie must be. Like, that's longer than an entire season of BBC Sherlock, and I usually don't watch a whole season of that show in one sitting. And I think it's great. I mean, 6 hours is longer than 2 back-to-back Braveheart viewings. And as old school Tobuscus would put it,
that is too much Braveheart, man!
Then Bella mentions some book Edward doesn't know, and he's surprised that she lists a book he hasn't read. Like, dude, you're only a 100-year-old broody punk. You cannot have read every book ever. So Edward brings Bella to his meadow that's totally beautiful and somehow not turned into a tourist spot, because, yeah, that's realistic, but whatever. Then he does this little strip show for her, and she stares at him for, and I quote here, 2,364 heartbeats. That seems like a long time to me, so I did the math. Assuming Bella's heartbeat at around a standard 60 BPM, that is 39 and a half minutes of her making Google eyes at him. That is a long fucking time. Even if we're generous here and assuming that her heart is beating at twice that rate because of lady boners, there's still nearly 20 minutes of her staring at him. That is way too long to stare at somebody, regardless if they are a disco ball or not. Then Edward hates himself because he gave Bella a giant lady boner for his glitter ball mode and thinks to himself, why couldn't I be as repulsive on the outside as I was on the inside? Oh yes, the edge, the fucking edge, baby. Better break out my black lip gloss and nail polish because we're about to get deep. Then I zoned out for a minute and didn't care enough to go back, and I think Bella begins tracing stuff on his palm and he starts following the letters. EDWARDPLEASEGOAWAY. He has no idea what that might mean. Like, none. At all. Edward must be fucking befuddled by Junior Jumble. Bella, I'm sorry. I'm a monster. I screwed up your cereal box puzzle this morning. There's no hell deep enough for the monster I am. So later on, they're in bed together, you know, as every high school couple instantly is, and Bella thinks of something that she refuses to tell Edward. Well, it isn't interesting enough for me to actually remember what she was thinking. I do remember Edward's reaction to her refusal, which is, if you don't tell me, I'm just going to assume it's something way worse than it actually is. Which feels very abusive / controlling relationship. And while I know that's not exactly a hot take on this shitfest, the fact is that it's really disturbing the way these two are with one another. Then Edward kisses Bella and she literally faints. I don't have a way to make that funnier than it is. That's just so dumb. Imagine if you were with somebody who passed out from kissing you. You'd have to wrap them in bubble wrap anytime you wanted to make out. Then Bella has the line, "You're too good. Far, far too good." And I quoted it because it's fucking dumb. It sounds like a cheesy porn line from a new smut director. Like, really? Also, if this is the first time they have ever kissed anyone, there's no way either of them is any good at it. So the family plays baseball, which made me think of something. If they have to play baseball in the rain because people think they're hitting the ball as a thunderstrike, are they not making Bella go deaf, standing right next to that all afternoon? Then a trio of vampires shows up and one wants to kill Bella, so naturally she thinks it's hot. Oh, wait, what? She doesn't? In fact, she's quite afraid of the dude who wants to drink her blood like it's a Capri Sun packet? What a reasonable reaction for her to have for the first fucking time in this book. Honestly, I'm at the point where I sort of just am starting to zone out and I can't even sustain anger for this long. I'm paying about as much attention to the story as I do the terms and conditions on an app update and accepting things almost as readily at this point. So I guess Midnight Sun won by war of attrition if nothing else. Then there's a pretty funny moment I think Edward mentally shouts, and the narrator of this book sounds like the Dark Knight's Batman reading, "There is no other option!" And it's particularly funny once you consider the fact that Robert Pattinson is going to be Batman. Because I need something to enjoy. This is a long book. Like, I've read Game of Thrones and it didn't feel as long as this. But just for the funsies, I did check, and the first two actually aren't super far apart from this word count. Then begins the vampire family hunting down James, which could be a super interesting part of the story. Except that I don't even care even a little bit. I actually spent more time Googling memes than being absorbed in the story at this point. And that goes back to what I said earlier. If you dial things up to 11, you can't just leave it there, because then 11 becomes dull and boring. And that's exactly what happened. So James manages to escape the Cullens by getting on a plane or some shit. My question is, how? How does a vampire afford a plane ticket and not kill everybody if it's commercial? How do they afford a plane ticket at all if it's a private plane? And how the fuck does he fly the thing if it's a little prop plane? Planes aren't like skates. You can't just go with that shit. There's a lot of stuff you have to know. Can I be done now? Please? So, anyway, James tricks Bella and the vamps cause some serious highway damage, hijack a couple cars, speed like men, and the sad part is that my description is about 20 times as interesting as this actual sequence, even if it's the closest I've ever come to being a little interested for like the last 12 chapters. Anyway, they end up catching James, and Emmett and Jasper are killing him. Edward focuses on Bella's blood, and I've written some bloody scenes. I've even characters who are like obsessed with blood, but honestly, the way that Edward thinks about it and fixated on it is like a 15-year-old who just found goth. Then Edward begins to kill Bella, and it's interesting because Alice is actually the one who stops him. Like, he fully gives in, and it takes Alice shouting into his mind. And she gets no credit for this in the original story, which retroactively makes me upset, because she's one of the two characters I actually kind of liked from the original story. But no, Bella and Edward are way more interesting and a fun, cheery character who can actually feel something other than severe broody. Then Alice sets up a seriously intricate cover story for Bella's interest, which makes me question why. Okay, if it's for Charlie, I kind of understand this, but the hospital doesn't seem to be launching an investigation, and the police have no reason to care about Bella at all at this point. The bit about covering the series of vehicular crimes makes sense, but it's the only part that actually does. Anyway, it's not worth going into the details because it takes forever, but the highlight of this cover story is that it requires absolutely no one to notice that the window of a hotel near a hospital is smashed out and covered in blood for over 15 minutes. Sure, it's not totally outside the realm of possible. It's just really weird and too much on top of everything else this book already asks. Anyhow, Alice's plan works out because it had to, and then it's revealed that James knew Alice, and all I can think is, Edward, you fucking failure. Your only thing is that you can read minds, and you didn't realize that this hunter you met knew Alice? You suck at your job, dude. Then prom happens, and it's stupid, and I don't care, because I'm finally through with this book. This book is really long. Like, it's almost as long as a Game of Thrones novel, which isn't even a joke, although it does have only about a tenth of the content, and that's being charitable. This was stupid. I'm an idiot, and I hate this thing with a renewed passion. Twilight, man. Anyway, my personal score is 1 out of 10. There are some signs of very, very slight improvement, but it's not nearly enough. Digging through the mountain of shit isn't worth the smelly dollar you find at the very bottom, and the smell of the shit hasn't improved just because you made more of it. Anyway, let's look at that bingo card. Honestly, I think my only shock is that we didn't fill this out completely. So anyway, that's all for this time. If you have something else you want me to review, please leave a comment down below. Let me know. Anyway, until then, go ahead and drink plenty of water, tell your parents that you love them, and stroke your mustache at night.